Welcome, everybody, to Mary Giuliani Live. I am so thrilled you're here tonight. We have a fabulous show. We've got Jeffrey Van Dyk, who is the creator of the Tribal Marketing System, and I'm really excited to have him on. I've really experienced some wonderful work with him, and can't wait to share it with you guys, or share Jeffrey with you guys. But before we do that, I'd just like to mention the purpose of this show for all the new people that might be watching. This whole show is about helping you transform your life by listening to other people that are doing it, that are sharing the work that they're passionate about in the world, and the story of how they came about to do the work that they're doing. And of course, you know, we all have challenges and things like that, and that's what I like to share on this show is the whole story, not just the bright, shiny story, but the good, the bad, and the ugly. Anyway, so the whole point of this show is to inspire you to be true to yourself and create your dreams. And so for those of you that are on Facebook Live, if you would like to ask Jeffrey questions in real time, what you need to do is go to Mary Giuliani, right above me there, .net, watch live, and there's a little chat box right below the live stream box where you can just click on the little Facebook button there and it'll log you right in, and you can ask questions of Jeffrey throughout the show, or me if you'd like. But before you leave Facebook, make sure you share this while it's live, because it really helps get Jeffrey's message out there to other people. What else? Oh, I want to make sure that any of you watching also can get on my email list, so you'll be informed of the guests that we have coming up, as well as the recording of this show, and some inspirational blog posts and that sort of thing. So again, go back up to marygiuliani.net and go to the free newsletter section and just put your name and email address. And I just send out one email a week, so it's pretty mellow, and I think you'll really enjoy the free stuff that you get. Let's see, what else do we have? If any of you have questions that you would like to ask me, I'm building a little database of questions to have a little segment at the end of the show where I'll be answering questions, since I am a life coach as well. And other than that, I think we're just about ready to get started here. Let's see. So Jeffrey has, let me give you a little bit of a background on Jeffrey. He's an award-winning international speaker and trainer, and has mentored and trained thousands of business leaders and entrepreneurs around the world. He specializes in working with mission-driven entrepreneurs and mission-driven messengers and change agents in business and government. And on an international level, he's working with business and political leaders in Colombia to support the ongoing peace efforts and with the guerrillas. And he's built a coaching company in Israel and is actively involved in peace efforts in the Middle East. He brings a really unique perspective to answering your calling and building a powerful, effective business and marketing engine to support it. His signature body of work is called Tribal Marketing, which is what I'm very familiar with, and that's what he's going to be speaking about today. You know, one of the things that was so interesting for me when I came across your work is how you are combining helping people get in touch with their core wounds, and how that can really help them gain clarity on their unique message, and also how it can really help them really connect with their particular tribe. So yeah. Can you share a little bit about how that works?
After I got trained as a coach and I quit Microsoft and I hung my shingle, is that not many people came. I wasn't very successful at first.
Yeah.
You know, and I had no idea who I was supposed to be serving, which is a huge problem for entrepreneurs. Like, who really is my tribe? You know, and I don't know if you've had that experience, but for me, it was a big problem. And
absolutely.
You know, I mean, and so I don't know if you've like worked with coaches and went to programs to try to find your niche, but I did, and none of them worked for me.
Well, you know, I had a unique advantage because I actually was running a gay and lesbian and gay-friendly business networking organization right when I heard about coaching and got trained to be a coach. So I already had like my tribe in place. So it's sort of just like I automatically just started working with business coaching clients in the gay community. But I came to find later that I really wanted to do more personal development. I really wanted to help grow people versus just grow businesses. So, but most coaches don't have that kind of thing built in.
No, In fact, for me, you know, most people do say like, well, what have you done? And like, I went to school for music and I worked in technology. So like, you can go to musicians or people in technology. And I was like, no, you know, musicians have no money. And I left Microsoft for a reason. Thank you very much. So it really took a lot of years of struggle. But I met this guy named Tim Kelly, and he is one of the foremost teachers in life purpose work in the world. And it's there that I really saw this connection between our core wounds, our life's biggest struggles and challenges, and our life's contribution. And that our wounds are actually a training program for our life's greatest gifts. And that was a revelation to me. Because until then, I had been struggling against my wounds. I tried to make them go away. I tried all sorts of self-help to get over it. But I never even contemplated that there was a higher purpose to my struggles.
Me neither. I mean,
And look, a lot of personal development stuff really does sell you, get over your struggles and live a life of peace and happiness. Off into the sunset. But that never really made sense to me because it's like, well, why did I go through it in the first place? Just to get over it? So when I really saw this connection for each person that because of their wounds, I think I think about our wounds like a slingshot. That it's the contraction that pushes us forward into the world. And however that contraction happens, if you pull a rock back and down, it's going to go up and down. Back and to the left, it goes forward and to the right. And so our wounds send us on a very particular path of growth and development that's unique to each one of us, where we do certain things and don't do other things, and build unique skill and capacity along the way. That in the second half of life is necessary for our contribution. So that's the first aha that I had around all of this.
Well, I'm so glad you shared about that, because through my whole personal growth path for 20, 30 years, I mean, I remember you would hear people say, well, once you overcome a major challenge, then you can inspire and empower people that have that same major challenge to overcome it too. And that's one level, but when I got into your work, it was like, oh my God, I just loved how you talk about how the wound, like for example, I was raised in a crazy alcoholic home, so I felt very powerless, and that's one of my core wounds. And so, yes, I could work with people that were raised in crazy alcoholic homes, but they might not have the same wound as powerless. You know what I mean? So just because, and that's what I learned with you. It was like, no, it's not. Everybody's wound. Like my sister may not have that wound, and she was raised in the same house.
Exactly.
So I love how you shared. You share with us at the tribe how the skills that you develop based on your wound is like your life's PhD. So could you share a little bit more about that? I just love that.
Yeah. So the thing you just pointed out is that we get what I call a life PhD in a certain wound pattern. That it's not really about the circumstances of what happened you were 5 or 7 or 8 or 32, right? But it really is the underlying pattern. So when you identified like, oh, I felt powerless repeatedly, and probably not just in the alcoholic home, but probably in other areas of your life as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And for me, it was a big belonging wound. Where, I grew up in a super conservative Christian family. Like, we went to church twice on Sundays and every Wednesday.
Oh, my God. I thought Catholic was bad.
We were Dutch Calvinists for the first part of my life, which is very austere, and, like, you cannot buy things on Sundays because that's the Lord's Day and that sort of stuff. And then we became holy roller evangelicals. Where it was about, you're going to burn in hell for all of eternity if you're not saved. So, of course, I was always a different thinker. I never, quote unquote, fit in with the way you were supposed to think about or perceive the world. And then when I when I was 13 years old, the summer I turned 14, I remember I went to the beach with my big sister Kim. We had a cottage in Holland, Michigan, on the beach, Lake Michigan, and you know, there's all these really cute Dutch kids running around because everybody's Dutch there, so they're all blonde-haired and blue-eyed, and my sister's 16, and her friends come up to say hello, and there's these 3 girls in bikinis, and of course they're 16 years old and gorgeous. But my eyes stayed on their 3 boyfriends in their boar shorts with those very sexy abs. You know, is right. You know, it was like that was my moment of, oh crap, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
Yep.
Because where I was raised, that's eternal damnation.
Yeah,
you know?
Me too.
And so to have this secret and feel like an outcast and feel like I didn't fit in anywhere. So my wound's all around belonging and not finding my place. You know, and then of course, what do later in life? I create a whole body of work called travel marketing that helps entrepreneurs find precisely who they are here to serve and why. Really find their tribe, the place where they will belong. Right? The place they belong in the market.
I love it.
So, you know, and it's funny because when we start to see these patterns, then we also know, okay, I have a life PhD in belonging, meaning I've traversed that landscape over and over and over again, feeling like an outcast, feeling different, feeling like I shouldn't think the things that I think or ask the questions that I ask, you know, feeling like a misfit or a black sheep. So who do I understand better than anyone else in the world and can have empathy for? Well, people that have this belonging wound, you know? So when I speak to my tribe, and my tribe, I call them bridge people. Because my tribe really feel called to like bridge a new consciousness into reality through business, whether they're in corporate or entrepreneurs, right? But there's that thing of like, we are meant to be way showers. We're meant to be ahead of the curve. We're meant to be out there with the sickle clearing the path. And that can feel very lonely, you know, and there's a lot of doubt and insecurity that can come along with it. Like, am I crazy? Does anybody want to hear the message I have for the world? Am I making this all up? If I bring this out, will they, you know, off with your head? Will they ostracize me, reject me, not buy from me? And if you're an executive like a lot of my private clients, and you're going to do something different, it's like, oh, am I going to burn all these bridges? And if I do, then I won't have a network, and then I won't have an income. So there's a lot of consequence that comes with being a way shower. And a lot of what I help my tribe do on the internal side of things is navigate the complexity of being a way shower in this world. And then on the business side, really help them refine their understanding of who their tribe is, what they need, why they're the one, what their life PhD is, what the connective tissue is between them and their tribe, and how to build their language and messaging in their marketing so that the tribe sees them as the person they've been looking for.
I love it. Yeah. Well, just, you know, the things that I've heard you lecture about have helped me get in touch with my core wounds, and how I'm really clear now that my tribe is people that have felt powerless, and that I'm helping them to step into their power and own it. And one of the other things that I love that you talk about is how our wounds have an expiration date. And so,
thank God.
Yes, gosh.
Yeah.
So how would you like describe? How do you know when? Well, first of all, do we have more than one core wound, and then how do we know when it's expired?
Yeah. So we can have more than one core wound. I wouldn't say we have like a bevy of them. Usually people have like one or two, maybe three, but usually just a couple significant ones, right? And there's usually one kind of on deck at a time that we're working through and learning from. And that's the one that I start with my clients. So in the first half of life, we get wounded, ouch, right? Our essence feels threatened. And in response to our wounds, we do two things. We hide and prove. So hide is we try to hide our wounds from ourselves. I don't want to see that in me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the second thing we do is we try to prove that it's not true. So, I did a lecture the other week at a colleague's seminar, and there was a woman there, and she identified her wound as being, I'm stupid. And I said, kind of jokingly, but, thinking there might be something there, I was like, so tell me, how many degrees do you have? And she said, including the one I'm currently working on? I said, no, just the ones you already have. She goes, 6.
Yeah. Yep.
And I said,
yep.
Oh, and are those from podunk universities? She goes, well, no, I have 2 masters from MIT, an undergrad from, right, and she lists them off, all these prestigious institutions. Right, and so that's proving, look, I'm not stupid, right?
Right.
Look at everything I've learned. Look at all the degrees I have. I'm not stupid.
Yep.
Or if somebody has a wound around being a failure, those are the people that usually are driven to be hyper successes, no matter what they must achieve, because they're trying to prove to themselves and everyone else they're not a failure. So in the first half of life,
that was one of mine too. Just so you know, that was the failure wound was another one of mine, and I was like so focused on being a successful entrepreneur because I had to make sure that nobody would ever see me as a failure because I didn't want to own that.
Right.
And so yes, I just wanted to say that.
Right. So the benefit that provides is proving that thing to be wrong actually provides really powerful fuel. Right? So if you didn't have a stupid wound, there's no way you could get 6 frickin' degrees. Right?
Yeah.
You'd peter out. You just wouldn't have that motivation. If you didn't have a failure wound, you wouldn't be driven for success. Right? If you didn't have a worthlessness wound, you wouldn't be driven to provide value. Which, by the way, I start to also see some of these wounds show up concentrated in certain industries, like the financial services industry. There's a lot of people with a worthlessness wound, which creates value, right?
Right.
So that's how it rolls in the first half of life. And along the way, working so hard to prove that thing to be untrue, we actually build a lot of muscle and skill, right? One of the consequences of my thing of belonging was, well, screw you, I don't need you anyway, people. And so I became very self-reliant. So there, right? So I became very self-reliant. Now, the upside is I can do a lot of things. And so as an entrepreneur, when you have to wear a lot of hats, fortunately, I have that capacity. Now, as I've grown, I've actually had to build a new skill, which is learning to delegate and outsource.
Right.
But bootstrapping it at the beginning was incredibly helpful. So in the first half of life, our wounds are actually a training program building the skill and muscle, the skill and capacity we must have in place to answer our life purpose in the second half of life. That's actually the design of the wound. And then we do often, we reach this expiration date where the skill and capacity has been built. It's there. So therefore, we don't need to blindly react to the old wound anymore. And that's what I call the expiration date, where it moves from a purposeful fuel to something that actually starts to poison your life.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little example. I always wanted to be the best in the world at what I do. That was my goal.
Right.
And I never even questioned it, as you do with wounds, right? I never stopped to ask myself why I want to be the best in the world. It just seemed like, well, of course, doesn't everyone want that? Now we see, actually, they don't. But from my worldview, from my wounded worldview, of course I want mastery. Of course I want to be the best in the world at what I do. And some years ago, I led I used to lead a series of 3-day big trainings where people fly in from all over the world, and we would lead these big marketing trainings that had a very spiritual component. They were called the Spiritual Marketing Quest. And this particular one was going so beautifully. People were just having these like amazing transformations in their leadership, and also big ahas in their business and marketing. And on the third day, I was on stage, and it just occurred to me, like, okay, I've done it. At exactly what I do, I am the best in the world at that thing. You know, I've achieved that goal. Check. Now, the challenge came the next morning, Monday morning, which was just like any other Monday morning. And that was heartbreaking for me, because I just imagined that, like, oh, once I achieved this goal, like, the clouds would part, the birds would sing, right? Like, somehow magically life would be different. And it wasn't. It was just another Monday morning. And so I did some internal personal work on that, and I found this younger part of myself that felt very abandoned by my dad. Now, my parents are still married, but my dad, when I was a kid, was just not around for many years. He built a 4,500 square foot home by himself on nights and weekends after work from the time I was 3 till 5. You know, so he was never home. And then he was always on business trips in Vermont and Japan and Germany and yada yada. So, and my mom was, she would fly into really crazy fits of rage when I was a kid. And so I'd be really scared, and I'd want my dad to be there to make me safe.
Right.
And he wasn't.
Right.
Right. So then I get done with doing this piece of internal work, and I check in with my spiritual guidance, and I'm like, how is it possible that I have an entire body of work built around core wounds, and I'm just now seeing that I have this big old abandonment wound? Like, what?
Oh, yeah. Wait a minute.
You know? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
And the message I heard back was, Jeffrey, that abandonment wound was the thing that drove you to build your mastery. With the unconscious idea that if you are the best in the world at what you do, that people will need you and not leave you.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. That makes
so
sense.
Check. It did its job. You've now acknowledged you're the best in the world at what you do, which is why now it can come to the surface out of your unconscious for you to become aware of it, do some healing around it, and integrate this lost part of yourself, this scared little boy, right? Yeah. Which is necessary to integrate for my leadership. So that's how the wound is useful in terms of our purpose. And an example of when it expires, our wounds, when our wounds expire, they move from something that's unconsciously driving us to something that becomes something we're aware of, that's painful, that we start stubbing our toe on, and it's really a indication that some part of us is ready for some healing and integration to step into the next version of who we are, which is the version required to lead to the next body of work we're here to lead.
Right. Well, yeah, it's so amazing. There's no one else doing what you do. And let me pull myself back into the picture here. So it's I think the thing I wanted to kind of talk about is you also talk about how most entrepreneurs are struggling to really reach their clients. And so how does identifying the wounds and everything help how do you work with clients to then channel that into their marketing focus?
Yeah, because when we just say like, oh, wound or unbelonging, like I don't know any entrepreneurs that are running around saying like, I have a belonging wound, please help, right?
Or they're not putting that in their ad copy.
No, right? And they're certainly not searching for it when they're looking for a marketing professional to hire. Right. Or if it's even powerlessness, there's a lot of empowerment coaches, but I don't actually see a lot of people walking around going, I need more empowerment. Right. So I make a distinction between what the underlying pattern is, which is unconscious for our tribe, and symptoms, which is where that pattern shows up as a problem, right? Right. So that's the thing that people are aware of, and therefore you can market to. So I'll give a few examples.
Good.
I had a guy who he came to me. He was a consultant in the technology area in Silicon Valley, and they had a fine business, but knew that he wasn't differentiated in the market. And so we did this work, and it turns out he had a big betrayal wound, right? Given up for adoption, wife left him for his business partner, right? Like just classic betrayal pattern. So I'm like, okay, you have a life PhD in betrayal. It's what you know through and through, right? Right. Therefore, instead of just throwing it out, right, why don't we utilize the skill you have understanding that pattern? So I said, okay, if this work is true, your best clients will also have a betrayal pattern. Now, he works with CEOs in Silicon Valley. So I said, okay, well, what's the problem? Because they aren't walking around, these CEOs aren't like, I have a betrayal pattern, please help. Right? So you can't use it in marketing directly. So, but instead it points the direction to what you can market to. So with him, it was, okay, if they have a betrayal wound, they probably don't trust people readily, because if you have a lot of betrayal, you don't trust people. If you're a CEO and you don't trust people, then what are the problems? Well, you keep your executive team at bay. And if you keep your executive team at bay, then what's the problem? Well, you become a bottleneck for the growth of the business as the CEO, because you have to do everything yourself, have your hands in all the pies, and you don't utilize the team you have around you. Hold on a second. Might be a sneeze? Maybe not. Okay.
No worries.
Right. Just keeping everybody on the edge, myself. So if you are the bottleneck for the business in Silicon Valley, what's the problem? Well, Silicon Valley is an incredibly fast-paced business environment. I used to work in Silicon Valley, right? I was at a few startups before Microsoft. And if you don't innovate like that, your competitors are going to eat your lunch, right? So then we position him as an expert, as a consultant that's an expert in working with small to mid-size. Oh, also, if you're stalling out at that level, there's only a certain amount you can grow. You can go be small to mid-size, but you'll never be a big company if you as a CEO are the bottleneck. You just can't grow that big. So you're either going to die, innovate, or sell. Those are the only three options, right? So he works with small to mid-sized companies that are stalled out in their innovation, and therefore their business growth is starting to halter, right? That now, once he did that, it's like, oh, wow, now we know who he is and who to send to him. But more than that, he knows who to look for. He knows which people he's going to do his best work with, which are the ones that have a betrayal wound. So he's not looking for all executives that have innovation speed needs. Once he starts in a consult with them to see if they're going to engage, he's looking for betrayal wounds. Now, he's not saying the word betrayal, but he says, so tell me, do you rely deeply on your executive team? Do you feel like you can trust him or not? Right? So he's poking around to see Are you
Yes.
an executive with a betrayal wound? Because if you are, I'm going to know through and through what to do with you because I have a life PhD in that, right? And sure enough, once he starts working in that arena and knows how to suss out who his people are and who they aren't, he has success after success after success, and people are like, oh my God, my business transformed, but my life transformed too. And those become the raving fans that refer people time and time and time again. One other really quick one, because I just got a text from another client today, somebody whose dad was just super mean, basically, and really abused power. And so, you know, he became a nice guy because he didn't want to be like dad, right? And he works with project managers. He trains project managers. So I said, okay, is this nice guy thing a pattern in the project management industry? And he was like, oh my God, it's rampant. Because project managers, when you're a project manager, you don't actually have any innate authority. Everybody reports to their own managers. You're just managing a project. So they try to be nice to get people to like them. But what it really does is erode their authority. And so projects don't get done on time or on budget and whatnot. So we started talking about the people-pleasing project manager, right? Whether it's a man or a woman. And he just got finished speaking at Ankara, Turkey, at the International Project Management Association big international conference as the keynote at the end of the first day.
Oh my God.
And sent me a text this morning saying, hey, it was awesome. Just got booked to speak in Istanbul. Why? Because he found a resonant pattern that he has a life PhD in that is rampant in an entire industry, right? So that's how we translate it into marketing.
Well, it seems like that's like basically how people are automatically drawn to people that are like them. Like you mentioned a lot in your talks how people sense when we have something in common with them, but we've overcome it, and there's something that they want what we have on some level. Yeah.
So I call that wound bonding, and it is actually how we bond on an unconscious level. And as a tribal leader or tribal authority, if we move through our wounding to the other side, like I'm now in a place where I deeply have a deep sense of belonging in my own heart and soul and in this world. And so I become, as is the opportunity for each one of us, the living example of the brand's promise. Where
that's so cool.
You know, the brand, the message, and the messenger are one. And that's the ultimate thing I want to help my clients do, because I don't just work on the marketing and branding side of things or the positioning sides of things. I also do a lot of deep inner work with people around their leadership development, and particularly around their wounds. Because when they can move to the other side, to the transformed state through the wound, and really understand and own the gifts of the wound, and serve from the giftedness of the wound rather than the pain of the wound, their tribe sees you and says, oh my gosh, you're like me, but there's something different here, right?
Yes.
Like there's a different quality to who you are, and I want something of that. And it's all unspoken, right? We know that language and communication is largely unspoken. And it's all that unspoken language that's like, wow, in your presence, I feel a potential for my life in your presence. And I want more of that. And that's really when we're, in my opinion, on the master path of being a messenger and a leader.
That's so key. And that's one of the main breakthroughs I've had of just, following your work. Is you really do help the right professional connect with the right client or the right audience, and it's so beautiful and elegant the way it just comes together. You know, another thing, I was just curious, one of the things when you have an event once a month at the Hall Center up in West Hollywood, and it's a great event that you, oh sorry, Santa Monica, yes. And one of the things that you say your friends joke with you about is that you have like this spiritual Tourette's thing, because it's a spiritual. And I'm just curious, like, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about that. And, like how that came about, and how that came about, and how that informs your work.
Yeah.
You just did it like about a minute ago. Yeah.
Okay. I get this head twitch sometimes when I get like a download about something or a confirmation that something's true. And it especially comes through when people are asking questions, right? When I'm coaching someone and there's a deep yearning in them. Like I get these knowings, and it happens like that. And so my friends call it my spiritual Tourette's.
Yeah.
And it usually comes with sort of like a package of information. It's like, oh, like I'll be coaching someone and it'll all just boom come through, and I'll be like, oh, this is what's going on, and this is why. Like I was training at another colleague's seminar just a little while back, and I was talking to this person, and we were mining what the actual wound is, and I was like, boom. I was like, you had a military father, didn't you? And she was like, yeah.
How did you know?
Right? And I was like, and because of that, this is the pattern you developed, and so forth, and here's how it shows up in your life, and here's how it shows up in your tribe's life, and here's how you might consider marketing as a result. And she was like, oh my God, you just spelled out my whole frickin' life. Now, you know, it's not that like I'm so massively wise that I knew it all. It just comes. And I've learned to trust that instinct and just blurt. And, you know, I remember years ago when I started coaching, after I left Microsoft, I was coaching this woman, and I kept seeing this red dress in my mind's eye. And I was like, all right. So, client, I don't know why, but I keep seeing this red dress. Does that mean anything to you? And she was like, oh my God, I had this red dress when I was 12 years old, and blah. And it just opened up like everything we needed to explore around whatever the issue was. And it was like, wow, okay. And so I started telling my clients, like, look, I'm just going to blurt when I get something. And if it doesn't land for you, throw it away, right? Only keep it if it's not true just because I blurt. It's only true if it's true for you, which is something I still tell my clients. But I get stuff, so I'm just going to blurt it when I get it and see if it sticks, you know. And now what I've realized is the vast majority of the time, it's like, boom, oh, yep, that's the thing. So, you know, look, everything we need to know is in a field of consciousness. We are in a networked field of consciousness. And science proves this now. This isn't just like woo theology, right? And we have the ability to tune into that network. Now, I do believe we need people's permission. So, like, one way I get permission is people hire me, right? Right. They're paying me to be able to do that. Right. But, you know, you asked me about origin story. In my 20s, I had a friend that was I went to college with, a dear friend, who went to class all day long, went back to her dorm room, studied for a while, slept for a while, then went to this hotel and worked the night shift from midnight to 8 every night. So she was maybe getting 4 hours a night sleep, and just killing herself. And she kept getting all these weird maladies, like health problems, until finally she got cancer and dropped out of. Look, we just chatted on Facebook the other day. Actually, she's doing great. Has a family, all is well.
Good.
But it was the big wake up. She dropped out of school for a year, took care of herself, etc. Now, at the same time, I was working at this, my dad worked for GM, and they had a program for their college kids that you could come and fill in the summer when everybody took vacations. And I had this boring job at this machine where I like just sat there all day long, and you couldn't read books, but you could listen to music. So I rented books on tape from the library. And yes, this was tape. This was 25 years ago. But I went through everything in that library because an abridged book is only 3 hours, so I could listen to 2 a day. So I started getting into all these mind-body medicine books and mind-body spirit books, and really starting to explore cancer from a spiritual perspective and so forth as my friend was going through it.
Right.
And then a couple years after that, my friend, my roommate, gave me this book called Sex, Death, Enlightenment, where this guy goes on this big spiritual journey and studies with these avatars in India and so forth. And I got done, and I just thought, like, maybe I should see a psychic or something, right? One of those weird people. And because I don't really remember my childhood, and I thought that maybe that was weird, and I don't know. Anyway, I walked inside. I got done with the book. I thought about it for a while. I walk inside, check my voice messages, and there's a message from my friend saying, hey, next weekend, my friend Hope is going to be in town. We're doing a small group thing, a group reading at the house. She's a channeler and medium, and please come. And I was like, oh, no. That is so weird. But I couldn't ignore, like, read about it, think about it, get the invitation, boom, boom, boom. Okay, I understand how this universe works. So I show up. Yeah. And at the time, I was waiting tables and substitute teaching and doing a lot of cabaret singing and jazz singing and stuff. And she does these little, like, 15-minute readings for 2 people ahead of me, and they're both really unique. And I know these people. So it's not like kind of generic, like, whatever crap. Right. So I'm like, okay, maybe she's got something, right? But I'm still very skeptical. And then she comes over to me and she says, I see you singing in the rain. I see you dancing like Fred Astaire. And, of course, at the time I was singing and dancing and doing a lot of theater. And then she says, oh, do you have a gentleman on your dad's side that's passed recently? And I was like, yeah, my grandpa. Right? Okay, here we go. She says, well, he's here and he wants to deliver a message to you. Well, my grandfather spoke Dutch. So you put verbs in different places in Dutch, kind of like German, than you do in English. Like, I don't actually speak Dutch, but I speak German. Like, you would say, ich gehe zu Hause, I go to the house, or, but you could also say, I to the house go, and put the verb at the end. And so, she's speaking, and she's saying the same, she's using the same sentence structure that he would use. This weird version of English, influenced by Dutch. And I'm like, this is weird. And I just got this overwhelming sense that what he was really saying, he kept saying, I'm here for you, anything you want, ask. And I kept getting this sense like, he was really saying, look, I know you're gay, and I wasn't able to say that it was okay while I was alive, but I love you. That was the feeling I got. So, so then she conks out and becomes a medium for the first time in the night, and this Irish guy speaks through her with an Irish brogue, right? And he's saying, like, I mean, this was like what I was not raised with this stuff.
So yeah, this is like way out there for you.
Way out there. Now, I had been reading metaphysical books and mind-body medicine and whatnot before this, but still, you know, and where I came from in like evangelical stuff, this lady was a witch, right? She was satanic.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But she's like the most committed to God person I've ever met in my life.
Right.
And so then this Irish guy comes through, and he's like telling me how I'm a bright light, and people flock to me like moths to a flame. And he said, you have to be careful that they utilize their own light and find their own light and don't just leak off yours. And then he said the same is thing on the etheric plane, that I have a lot of spiritual support. And then he goes, and I have all these guides around me, is what he said. And he goes, they're at the front of you, and at the back of you, and at the sides of you. It's like a football team backing you up. I will never forget it. And then he said, whenever you feel a chill at the base of your spine, which some people call the mouth of God, that hollow spot at the base of the skull, top of the spine, that's your guides. And just then, I had one of these head twitches when he said this. And my first thought was, holy psychosomatic. And as soon as I had that thought, this whole team rushed into my body, and I just felt them like pulsing through my body, kind of like when you've had a really vigorous run and you can feel your blood pulsing through, but it didn't feel like it was my veins. And then I just started bawling because I couldn't contain the energy, and collapsed on her shoulders, and she smelled like my grandfather, which was super freaky.
Oh my God.
And then my 15 minutes were up. And ever since, I know. She had longer ones, hour ones the next day. I'm like, I'll be coming back.
Wow.
And so she's still my teacher to this day.
Yeah. So ever since
then,
and ever since then, this funny head twitch has been there when I get downloads of information. It's like an initiation, and it's funny, or something. Yeah. But when I talk to people, a lot of people have some version. They get goosebumps when they get ahas or insights. Mm-hmm. I knew one girl that burped. Don't know why. But I just get a knowingness. I just have this knowingness, a feeling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, cool.
So
Thank you for sharing that.
It's a little thing in my tribe, because people are when they see it, especially when I'm speaking in front of a big group, right? They're like, what do you get? What'd you get? What is it? So it's kind of.
So what happens for you when you're trying to negotiate something in Costa Rica or these government agencies? Do you actually share that's what's going on, or do you sort of keep it under wraps?
No, I don't say anything.
Okay, because they don't get it. They probably wouldn't get it. Yeah.
Here's what I say. I just say, I'll get something, and I'll say, I have this insight. Blah, 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 blah.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So I have a way to translate that into corporate speak or business speak or government speak outside of the woo circles.
Cool. I was just curious. Well, we're running out of time here, but I just wanted to ask you a couple more questions. So how, if let's say there's somebody watching tonight that knows that apparently 70% of people are not happy with their work. So chances are you're one of them if you're watching. They're not maybe clear that they want to be a thought leader, or go really big with their career, but they know that they want to do something that feels in alignment with their heart and soul. What would you recommend that they do?
That's a big question. So I don't think there's one answer, right? So part of the answer is, do they stay in some version of an organization, whether that's a nonprofit, a corporation, public service, whatnot, or do they become entrepreneurial? Right. Because the answers are a little different in each one of those. So first, let me start. If you're going to stay in some sort of organizational capacity, I think it's important to understand that your work has a transformational impact that you are already doing. Part of my work is helping people clarify what the transformation is that they're already giving. Yeah. They're just not aware that they're doing it. And when you become conscious of it, you can be more on purpose about it, be more volitional in focusing there. Right? So maybe.
That's so great, yes.
Right? So, Mary, if you worked in corporate and you knew your wound is around powerlessness, and of course, then that leads to empowerment, maybe you would really take on as a manager becoming, really concentrate on becoming a coach for your employees and really make your higher purpose making them the best they can be, right?
Exactly.
So my boyfriend doesn't, I don't think have the same wound as yours, but like one of the things he really concentrates on is developing his people. And it's part of how he has a sense of satisfaction and purpose in an otherwise like pretty straightforward sales career.
Right.
So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is you also have got to get really clear, and this has nothing to do with anything I've spoken about tonight, but it's another part of what I love. Really clear about your innate skill and talent. So whether that's doing DISC assessments or looking at your Kolbe, Kolbe, I think it is,
and these are like
assessment,
strength
finder.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, for example, I'm incredibly verbal, right? I'm a verbal learner. I'm auditory, more than being kinesthetic or visual. So I love to talk. I also learned that I don't like to write very much. So, for example, one of the things we do in my company when I write curriculum is I have a head of training that's part of my company. We come up with a series of interview questions for her to ask me. We put the microphone on, right? This microphone right here, and she interviews me. Then we send the interview to a transcriptionist. Transcriptionist sends it back to the head of training. The head of training takes the transcript and turns it into a training module. Then we sit side by side, review the training module, and I verbally tell her how I want it to be edited to make it better, right? So I stay in my genius zone by staying in a very auditory state, because I find that when I try to just write curriculum, it's kind of dull, right? I'm not very good at that.
You're not playing it on the right instrument. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Even my own webinars, I used to create PowerPoints to do webinars for my marketing. I don't do it anymore. I do it like this, direct to camera, and I take a flip chart and I teach just like I would in front of a classroom, which I used to be a teacher.
Like for me, I got through the first draft of a manuscript for my own spiritual awakening memoir, but it was painful because I'm not a writer. I don't really enjoy writing. I like having a talking kind of experience as well. So I totally get you. And I feel like there's a flow and the energy flows much more beautifully when I'm in my element. So I guess, so thank you. That's great. That's really great tips. So let's see. So how, like if somebody wants to work with you, what are ways they can work with you, Jeffrey?
Yeah, there's a couple different ways. The first way, you know, you talked about this event I do in Santa Monica. I live stream it globally. So from the get-go, my guidance said, you're supposed to do this local event that's a global happening. So it's a hub based in LA, but we live stream it. And so if you go to jeffreyvandyk.com, that's jeffreyvandyk.com, jeffreyvandyk.com. My name does not have an E at the end of the last name. And go to the live events tab. You'll see where to sign up for that. And the live stream is free. So anybody can join that. And also on my website is a link to the YouTube channel where the last like year and a half or 2 years of those monthly events are all sitting there. So you can go back and watch a whole catalog of those events.
Yes.
So that's one resource.
They're excellent, by the way, just so you know. I've watched several hours worth of them. So do take Jeffrey up on that. So anyway, go ahead.
Awesome. So that would be an easy way to begin. And then if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a business leader and you want support in really refining precisely who you're here to serve and understanding how to mix this deeply emotional relationship, because people buy with emotion and justify with logic, right? And build a business that has connectivity with your audience but also really makes sense to them so they buy. That's the work that I've developed called tribal marketing. So you can go to tribalmarketing.biz, tribalmarketing.biz, and there's a whole training there that really spells out and lays out this process of moving from the wound into the symptom to understand where to position and market your work. So once again, you go to tribalmarketing.biz for that. So those would be the probably two most direct ways to be in touch and to engage further.
Awesome. Well, very good.
Yeah.
So my last question I always like to ask all of my guests is, what message are you most passionate about that you want to leave our viewers with tonight?
There are no problems to be solved, just more truth to be revealed. That all problems are a gateway into a greater expression of truth that wants to be revealed. And if we can stop harping on our problem and instead be grateful for them, including the problem of our wounding, and say, what's the gift here? What does it have to teach me? What's available through this portal? That we move into a life of greater power and ease, where we aren't battling ourselves and battling our circumstance, but instead using everything that comes across our path to grow and develop in our leadership and our giftedness.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your work. It's had a transformational impact on my life, so I recommend everybody check out his websites and definitely tune in to his live stream once a month. So thank you so much, Jeffrey.
It's been a pleasure. That's the third Thursday of each month when we do it live.
That's right. The third Thursday at 7 o'clock, right? Is it 7 o'clock?
7 p.m. Pacific time. Yep.
All right. Thank
Beautiful.
you so much.
Well, thank you for having me here, sweetheart. It's great to be here.
Okay. Okay, bye.
Take care.
All right, Jeffrey Van Dyk, that was amazing. Just love his work. So if you're really looking for support in clarifying your calling and really reaching your audience in a way that has flow and meaning for you, you've got to check out his work. It's really, really powerful, and there's no one else doing it. I mean, I'm all over this personal development and entrepreneurial stuff, and I would have found it if it was out there, and I haven't found it. So Jeffrey's got the goods on it. You got to go see him. So, all right, a couple more announcements, and then we'll be wrapping up. The next announcement is I always do a coaching tip every week. And so since tonight is about really being true to yourself and honoring your calling and finding your tribe, one of the things that's been really powerful for me, for people out there that are watching that may not be clear about what their true purpose or calling is, or just trying to get in touch with what they really want to contribute in the world, is a kind of a simple process where you take down a piece of paper and you write down, if money, time, and skill were no object, what would you spend your time doing? So like you have $10 million, let's say, or more, and you've got all the time and you've got any skill you want, what would you really want to do with your time? And I want you to write down 5 to 10 things. I mean, this could be from watching, inspirational media to horseback riding to having a talk show like this. And then once you write down those things that you really love doing, and again, just suspend judgment in terms of whether you feel like you have the skill or if you could ever make money doing it. You've got to suspend judgment on that. And then I want you to review each one of them and get in touch with how each one of them feels in your body when you contemplate them. And what we're looking for is the highest level of excitement, because our bodies will tell us. They'll tell us what really feels exciting and like a calling for us to follow. And actually, this is one of the processes that I did to get in touch with doing this show. I knew that there's nothing more that I love than being in the conversation of transformation. It's what I do all the time with everybody I hang out with. So why not? And I love sharing really good thought leaders information. I'm always doing that all the time. All my friends are getting emails from me all the time with good stuff. So why not have a show where I could even share even more? And that was the impetus for this show. So I really encourage you to do that. And of course, you got to take the next step, which is make a commitment to take one action toward that. So for me, it was researching what kind of show do I want it to be? Is it going to be video? Is it going to be live? And that led me to where we are right now at this moment. And this is so much fun for me, and I'm having a really good time. So go ahead and give yourself a chance with that, and you'll be amazed at what happens. So next week, I want to mention that we have one of my best friends in the world, Carrie Palmer, And she is an amazing writer and a speaker, and she has gone from being abused to zen, from being powerless to powerful, and now she's touching everybody by making shifts happen in their lives. So she's going to be here next week, so make sure you definitely come and visit with us live. You can ask questions through the chat if you would like. And my last comment always is, what's one thing that you can do to be true to yourself? And put it on your calendar so that you make sure you do it. And again, you'll be amazed at what happens. So thanks for being here, everybody, and have a great week.